What's up, music fans of the internet? I'm Derek.
And I'm Kevin.
And together we're last week's album. We're bringing you the only reviews with two different views. And this week we're talking about Walls by Kings of Leon. And we're asking the big question, will Kings of Leon's latest effort rock arena walls? Cheers, Kevin and everyone at home.
Cheers, Derek and everyone at home.
Kings of Leon are the quartet of the brothers and cousin Followill from Tennessee. Walls is their seventh album, and that is actually an acronym for We Are Like Love Songs. So it does kind of follow the trend of album titles having 5 syllables in them. This one was produced by Mark Draves. He's worked with Florence and the Machine and Arcade Fire prior to this. Let's talk about what it sounds like.
I thought it sounds like the Followill family band returns to form and the 80s to write an album of love songs.
I think on Walls, Kings of Leon sounds like kind of Leon. But let's talk about some highlights. Kevin, what'd you think?
I thought overall, probably my favorite part of this album is that it sounds and feels like they're having some fun. They're not worried too much about a particular sound, although I would argue the album on the whole is a very focused sound. But you can hear them having some fun on tracks like Reverend and Find Me and Muchacho, and taking a few risks here and there sonically. So I like that they're pushing the boundaries and having fun with that.
Absolutely, I couldn't agree more. It definitely sounds like they're having a lot more fun again, and even a lot of the interviews they've given leading up to this album, they've reiterated that as well. I also thought Waste a Moment was another fun one. Definitely kind of harken back to some of their more fun times.
I also thought it feels very sort of considered and thought through, which I think is kind of new for Kings of Leon. I don't see them approaching albums with like a particular concept in mind, although maybe they have. It never really sounded like it. But on this one, it's definitely very intentional that it's sort of slick and reflective.
I think that could go one of two ways. I almost thought it sounded a little too slick at times. It lacked some of the raw, high energy that characterized some of their earlier stuff.
I thought the lyrics were nice and personal, yet sort of relatable. We get homages to friends, professions of love, stories of loss, and I thought the words here were well written.
I did find some lyrics a little less relatable on Around the World. He says, all around the world, I lost myself and found a girl. I just don't think many people can really relate to that.
You mean you're not in a band that's played all over the world and seen all these amazing things, Derek?
No, I haven't. And I don't think many of their listeners have either.
Yeah, and I'm glad you picked up on that line itself. I lost myself and found a girl just felt kind of trite. I don't know.
That song in particular, I thought sounded just a little too crisp and polished, and I almost thought the almost self-absorbed lyrics there kind of reflected that.
Yeah.
All right, those were some highlights. Now let's talk about lowlights. Kevin, what'd you think?
Sure. I just have one sort of overall gripe is that I felt like, to your point, Derek, the album overall feels a little too slick. I wanted a little bit more of that raw energy. I always think back to youth and young manhood, and I'm always anxious for them to get back in that mindset of just raw energy that they originally had. And I wish there were just more of it here. I think we get glimpses of it. I just wish there were even more.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I had a few small gripes. I mean, like I said, Around the World just felt a little too crisp and polished, and the lyrics a little less than relatable. Over didn't really seem to grow too much to ever really catch me. Clocking in at 6:10, it was just a little too long for my liking. Let's talk about the overall rating and answering the big question. Will Kings of Leon's latest effort rock arena walls? Kevin, why don't you start us off?
Sure, I will start with that question. Will it rock arena walls? Maybe not in a physical sense. I don't think this is a super loud, super arena-ready album. But I think in the figurative sense, I think it'll turn people's heads and their ears will perk up when they hear some of these new sounds. Like I mentioned, this sounds like I think they harken back to some 80s sounds. We get flavors of like Tom Petty, Bruce Springsteen. One of these tracks, Over, could easily fit on any John Hughes soundtrack. And so I think there's some really interesting 80s vibes. I also appreciate how they're pushing themselves here and there. I just wish there were even more of that. But I think it's a really, really strong album for Kings of Leon. It definitely exceeded my expectations So I'm going to give this one a 4 out of 5.
I think we're going to agree for the most part here to answer the big question. Yes, I can only assume it will rock arena walls, or at least maybe they will continue to rock arena walls with some songs from maybe more rockin' albums. To echo your point, I really thought there were some flashes of that familiar Kings of Leon sound and energy. But on the other hand, for all the flashes of the familiar, I thought there were a few forays into the awkwardly unfamiliar. The whistled melody in the south of the border, Romp Muchacho, I thought it is taking a risk. Is it the most rewarding? Maybe not. But, I'll agree with you that it's nice to see them challenging themselves to even take on such risks. It's not my favorite Kings of Leon album, but it's my favorite latest Kings of Leon album. So I'll give this one a 3 out of 5. And with Kevin's 4, that's combined 7 out of 10. So go check out Walls by Kings of Leon. Don't forget to tell us what you thought about the album. And thanks again for joining us here at last week's album. Don't forget to subscribe here on the YouTube or on the podcast. And as always, I'm Derek.
And I'm Kevin.
Cheers, everyone.